Welcome to Film Strip. These podcasts are spoiler-filled as we discuss the plots, characters, and themes of the films in review. All content used or discussed in these podcast episodes is the property of the respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504(c)(2), Title 17.
Welcome to Film Strip. I'm Jay.
I'm Lindsey.
I'm Ron.
We're happy to welcome back to the show Carmelita Valdez-McKoy
Hi, friends.
and Andy Action Movie Guy Gorham.
Hello, friends.
We've gathered this merry band of travelers for our review of Conan the Barbarian from 1982, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, James Earl Jones, Jerry Lopez, Sandahl Bergman, Mako, Sven-Ole Thorsen, Ben Davidson, and Max von Sydow. Based on the works of Robert E. Howard, Roy Thomas, Barry Windsor Smith, L. Sprague de Camp, Lynn Carter, and Frank Frazetta. Adapted by John Milius and Oliver Stone. Directed by John Milius. Conan the Barbarian, why now, you say? Well, when we resurrected Film Strip after a break a few years ago, we came back with something called Summer of Stallone, and I've always felt like I kind of owe Arnold one back on this, because we've only done a couple of Arnold films in all the years of Film Strip. And I thought, you know what says more Arnold than a summer of swords and Schwarzenegger, as it were. So that's what we're doing here, a little twofer of Conan's. But I want to get everybody else's background with the movie and all that kind of stuff going with this. And Carmelita, we're going to start with you. What's your story with Conan the Barbarian?
Oh, it is a long, wonderful saga. I saw Conan as a kid with my dad, my brother. We loved this. We would rewatch it all the time. We would rent it. Countless times I've seen this movie. And it would be impossible to overstate how much I love it. It brings me so much joy. But yeah, I mean, this movie, it's like part of my development as a human being. I've seen it so many times and saw it at such a tender age. And like we would quote it, and my dad likes to do kind of this Thulsa Doom thing and call people boy. And it's just, my heart just swells every time. I'm so excited to be talking about it with you guys.
Very cool. Andy, what about you, man?
Okay, I got a weird entry into it. We were at a Christmas bazaar at our church growing up, and I stumbled upon this in our gym. They were selling stuff, and there was a local like mom and pop video place that had closed down, and they were selling off a bunch of stuff. And I got the second movie we're not talking about tonight. So, so I go home and watch that, and I'm like, this is awesome. And then I can't remember, maybe it was a couple weeks later, but it was like randomly on like channel 20. There's an edited version, and I'm like going through. I was like, "What the hell is this?" It's Conan, and I was like, "Wait a minute, this is a better Conan. What is happening here?" Even edited, I was like, "Okay, this is exactly what I hoped more Conan would be." And then I was able to search it out. One of my fondest memories was getting away from my family, and I'd go stay the night at my mother's mom's house, and my grandma, God bless her soul, she would go order pizza and drop me off and let me pick 4 or 5 movies to watch all night. Nobody was there, just me and her, and she'd leave me alone after about 10 o'clock. We'd play some cards. I'd put on a movie. She'd let me drink as much pop as I wanted, as much candy as in pizza. No brothers and sisters to tell me we can't watch it again after we got done. So I rented Conan an insane amount of times. Like it's nuts, an obscene amount of times. So yeah, and then I think I've had it on every single format that you could possibly own it on since then. So yeah,
Nice.
been with me ever since I can remember, and it's fundamental to why I love movies, I think. So
All right, so we got 2 people that have had it since childhood. Lindsey, what about you?
This is the first time I've ever watched it all the way through from start to finish. I've seen it in bits and
Nice.
pieces when it aired in syndication or on TV in different places. But I'm sure it's super edited. I don't know. I've seen bits and pieces throughout the years, but Yeah, this is the very first time. But Andy, my Grammy used to do the same thing. She would take us to get gas station pizza, and my brother and I would rent whatever movie we wanted. And this is how I saw so many inappropriate horror movies, like before the age of 11.
Awesome.
But it
That's how
was
I saw.
great.
Yeah, that's how I saw every single action movie I shouldn't have seen
Yeah.
before the age of 11. So, yep.
Yeah.
Outstanding. All right, Ron, what about you?
Well, like everyone else, apparently, I had a permissive grandmother, um, who had,
Excellent.
for some reason, she had the movie channel. So, and this is back in the day when Joe Bob Goes to the Drive-In was on the movie channel. So I started watching Joe Bob Goes to the Drive-In when I was like, I don't know, 10 years old or something, way too young to be watching, Frankenhooker and whatever. And that segued into just a love of. I've always had a thing for like swords, because I'm a fat nerd and that's just what we do. Um, but I never was like the Japanese type of nerd. I'm the other type of nerd, the medieval martial art, European martial arts, historic European martial arts nerd.
The Ren Fair nerd.
Yes.
I find that interesting considering your intro to me in this show was ninja movies, but go ahead.
Look, they had swords, but it was always usually a white guy doing the chopping. So
That's
that felt,
true. Yeah.
and I was doing Taekwondo at the time, so that felt like approachable to me. That felt
Fair.
like a future career path I could have. And
Fair.
had I known Steven Seagal would still be making action movies at his current weight, I would have probably jumped into making action movies too. But anyway, that said,
I'm not sure if we call those action movies anymore.
well, there are actions happening around him while he
stands there. Yeah, correct.
Yeah. But I've seen this movie a million times on TNT and TBS. It's another one of those movies that back when I had cable, if it was on, I was going to watch it, edited for TV on a premium channel, wherever it was going to be, I was going to be there. So it's one of those things that's always been a part of my life. I've seen it a million times. I actually have a flea market replica of Conan's sword.
Nice.
That is
Nice.
amazing, and I'll have to bring it from home, from my mom's basement, and bring it over here sometime. Assuming she hasn't like thrown it out or something, which I hope she didn't. But yeah. I've always been a member of the Cone Zone, so.
Okay, sorry. Ron and I are now going to be best friends forever because he has
got the real sword.
He's got a
Yeah.
Conan sword. He, Taekwondo growing up. That was me too. This is perfect.
Did we just become best friends?
Yes.
Just
We're all-
happened.
And we always hang out for all the AEW pay-per-views.
Right.
too.
We most certainly do.
Yeah. So I saw this one because my dad grew up reading the Conan pulp books and reading the novels and stuff. And I was never into comics and all that kind of stuff, but he loved this stuff. And then we had one of those free weekends of HBO or Showtime, one or the other, and it was on and he saw it and thought, holy smokes. So he found out when it was coming on again. He was like, you got to watch this with me. I'll just tell you when you need to leave the room. And it wasn't for when anybody's head was getting cut off. It was for when there were naked people on the screen. And as if me at 7 would have known anything different about it. But, that was my introduction into Conan. But the thing that I do remember, he was such a fan of the soundtrack to this. And I'm trying to think. I mean, I was aware of music in movies at this point, even being a little kid, but I remember the first time I heard Anvil Crom and just that dun, 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 all that in my head. And he had the cassette of it. So we used to ride around going fishing in North Alabama, blasting that on the truck stereo, as good redneck people from Alabama do, because that's what you do when you're ready to go slay some fish. You got to get pumped up. And but I carried that with me through like high school. Like when I was there are two things that I listened to pump up for track meets, and I never won anything, but I would listen to Conan the Barbarian, usually Anvil Crom, and then I would listen to this buried track on the Black Crowes Shake Your Moneymaker album called The Struttin' Blues. It's like my track song. Don't ask me why. But yeah, it's just the one I go for. So those are my pump up songs. So I
Wait,
signed up.
has it made it to any of your running playlists?
Yes,
now?
oddly enough, I signed up to do this kind of continuous. It's not like a full ultra, but it's one of those like you go until you can't go anymore or whatever. And in the sign up, they ask you what's your pump up song because when you were coming around like the fourth lap, they would play it for you. And I said Anvil of Crom, and so they were blasting that as I was coming through the woods one time
Nice.
with a broken ankle, as it turned out.
Oh my God.
But so that almost helped. But anyway, it did make it. It does make it on the list from time to time. So when I'm especially on like long runs when I need to, all right, let's go, and that kind of thing. So it's not a great 5K song I found. It takes a little bit to get into, but your longer runs, it's definitely one to go with. But no, but I've been a fan of this forever. And then of course saw Conan the Destroyer, and I tried to think like which one have I seen more because I actually think I've seen Destroyer more, and we'll talk more about that on the next show. But um, tons of fond memories about this. It was my introduction to Arnold. And just a short while later, a couple years later, I got to see Terminator because we rented it at home. The benefits of having a brother 5 years older than you is that my parents just assumed like, yeah, well, we can all handle it now. So I got to see stuff I was not supposed to see because Shane got to see it. So, which was fine. So fine for me because I got to see all kinds of cool stuff. But I remember thinking, just seeing someone that big because someone who still watches wrestling, and at the time the WWF wrestling product in particular was people that looked like Arnold. They were these cartoon character guys, and seeing someone like that throw that sword around and a lot of the moves he does and stuff, it just burned an impression in my head. And it was years later that I learned who James Earl Jones was in the Star Wars lore, because you didn't know that back then necessarily. And every time I saw him in anything, I was like, it's the Snake Man. It's the Snake Man. Because that freaked me out, that scene where he transforms in this movie. And I'll just never forget it. But what's wild about this movie is I can remember being a kid and just being into all the action of it, right? And then watching it later and getting into like all the technical aspects and the music and stuff. And now I watch it and I'm like really engrossed in how much story they cram into this 2 hour movie. It's like 3 seasons of television now crammed into one movie. And it's wild how much they get into it. Has anybody else like read any of the source material, the books, any of that kind of stuff here?
I have the Ballantine
Oh my stars.
editions. I've read 2 out of the 3. The last one is still in my to read pile for some reason. Yeah, these are great. Ballantine Books put out 3 editions, a collection of the stories and the originals.
Nice.
Before all the edits that were done over the years. We should have got so many sequels.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was Oliver Stone's idea. He's like, this should be like James Bond. We should do it every 3 or 4 years. And they just
so many amazing Conan stories. I highly recommend reading them if anyone who likes high fantasy and adventure.
Very cool.
I've read comic books because there's awesome pictures in it, and anybody who listens to me on any other number of podcasts knows if there's a novel, I'm like, all right, I guess I'll read it if I have to, if there's no pictures in it. So I was a big fan. I had a lot of Savage Sword of Conan magazines. Again, way too young because grandma would go to said comic shop and never ask questions and just buy what I asked, and would always ask the man behind the counter, is there a senior discount? And he'd be like, no, but here's 20% off. So it worked every time. So grandma's out there, ask if there's a discount. You'll probably get one.
Always.
Oh, yeah.
That's a great lesson that your grandma gave you there. That's fabulous.
I know.
But no, weirdly enough, I haven't read any of the comic books or any of the source material, which is strange because I've read all of Michael Moorcock's stuff. So you would think I would just make the jump to when I finished Elric. You think I would have just made the leap to Conan since I love the movie so much, and I even will defend Red Sonja.
Yep.
But yeah, no, weirdly enough, but I think I'm gonna have to dig into it now because I've got the itch again.
Yeah, I haven't watched this. My dad had some of the panels still left from. He says he owned the books at one time, y'all. I can't prove it. I think the man may have just taken the pictures. I don't know, but it was just this, big muscular guy swinging an axe with like a head flying off of one, and this half naked woman hanging off of him in the other, and it's this whole beast of nonsense coming at it. I could just look at that picture and just think of how do we get to that point, and just your imagination ran wild, especially after having seen this. And so, somewhere. I think he's even still got those. But yeah, I know I never read any of it either. So what about you, Liz? You're more a fan of this kind of stuff. So
I am. No, I've never read it though. I'll add it. I'll add it to my pile of to reads.
yeah, I'm gonna break into this now. This sounds like something worth doing. What's funny
know.
though, and if we know the backstory to this stuff, is that so much of this movie is not Conan backstory stuff. It's like all the other stuff that they wanted to borrow from and shove into this, which is wild. So, but hey, you know what? I'm one of those that I don't think you don't have to transliterate from one medium to the next. You get ideas from whatever, and you make something cool, then make something cool. And particularly when I know John Milius and Oliver Stone are involved, I know that they're borrowing from everything, including whatever was underneath the dusty pile on the left, because that was definitely involved in making this movie. So as we know, but
Well, those Conan stories, they were first published in Weird Tales.
yeah.
They're just different episodes, if you will, different little snippets of stories. So yeah, you can totally, it's very malleable.
Mhm. That's why I think like Stone's impetus to the idea of like this could be like Arnold Schwarzenegger's James Bond thing is not wrong. Like you could do this all the time. And yeah, we should have a dozen of these and not two, and one that we're not absolutely ever going to talk about. On
Yeah.
this,
And I'm still
show.
waiting on King Conan.
Oh, well,
saying.
yeah, we're good. It's not going to be Arnold. I think we missed the boat on that one about 10 years ago, but yeah, that would have been good. He had a script, just nobody could afford it.
I don't know. He still looks pretty good.
I know he does,
And
but
he looks good with a beard now, so that's perfect.
yeah, I don't think he would do
Yeah.
it. I think he's even said like he wouldn't do it now.
It breaks
but,
my heart.
Yeah, but
Never
would've
say
been cool.
never.
Yeah, as we've
Again.
learned in the Bond world. Yes, indeed. Well, Ron, before we get any further, why don't you tell us what Conan the Barbarian is about?
So it's the day of recording, and as usual, Jay asked me if I have a plot summary written. As usual, I don't. I always wait to the last minute anyway. So I decided to do what all the kids are doing now and cheat. So I didn't ask Chat GPT. I asked Chat JPT. Actually, I didn't ask, but he posted it in the Film Strip group text thread, and I liked it, so I'm stealing it. Quote, the running man chases after Darth Vader, who now runs snake Scientology across fake Middle Earth, gets laid, kills a bunch of people, loses a girlfriend. Him, Spicoli, and a short ninja wax the bodybuilders and ex-Oakland Raiders before he finally decapitates Vader and ends the cult. There's more I could add, obviously, like the fact that Coney kills a giant snake, and one of the people he has sex with is a witch who he throws into a fire and who flies off in spirit form, or the fact that his girlfriend Spicoli and Short Ninja have to bring Conan back from the dead. But if Jay's description doesn't really sell the movie for you, nothing I can add here will. Unless I can sway you by telling you Sandal Bergman chops a guy's head off, and there's a body count in the hundreds, a boob count in the tens, 2 scenes of Arnold being funny and punching camels, and 1 riddle of steel.
Yes, indeed.
Excellent.
Oh my.
That's
Well done.
That's pretty
Great talk,
good.
everybody. I'll talk to you later. Good
Yeah.
luck beating that today.
Yeah, we're gonna be able to beat that, but that's there is. I said it before, and there is a lot that happens in this movie, and this was kind of weird. But I love how this opens, and it's again that score is just pumping, and we'll spend time on the score. But I love that it opens with almost no dialogue for like 5 minutes. It's just and I remember hearing Milius say this once. He said, all good stories begin with the sacking of a village. And I was like, I don't know if that's true, but I think that's the right way to start this story. And I love the whole bit where they're making the sword, and his dad, who may or may not have been one of the Russians that the boys were trying to kill in Red Dawn. I've never been able to understand that. I think he might have been one of them that they're trying to shoot, but either way, is telling him the riddle of steel, and they're sitting in this gorgeous scenery, and there's snow and everything, and then in rides the more or less the Oakland Raiders of the day to just wreck the town and kill everybody. And I'm just struck by how much happens without a word being said anywhere along the way. Like there's just a few words between Dad and Conan, and then the rest of it is just people looking and swinging swords and stuff. It's pretty amazing.
Yes,
it's
it is.
epic. It's epic right from the jump. And let's back up. You start the movie with a famous quote from Friedrich Nietzsche.
Which is a choice.
But I mean, right from the jump, you're telling us this is going to be a story about resilience. This is not just going to be slice them up sword fight movie, there's philosophy here.
Mhm.
There's like, we're really going to dig into lore and the epic hero's journey right from the jump. And just that whole sequence, getting the riddle of steel right from the gate. I mean, it's amazing.
It's capital L lore, by the way, too. I mean, they
Yeah.
come right out with it, but because everything from the molten, steel being poured and hammered out on that anvil to the father trying to relay that to the son, and you see that whole village is built around that, and then them getting completely wiped off the planet by Thulsa Doom and his crew. It's wild, but you're right. Like Billy has thought of this in 3 acts. He said the first movie's got to be about strength. The second movie's got to be about, redemption, and the third movie's got to be about loyalty. Well, they never got around to the third one, and I don't know if the second one's about that or not. But this first one is definitely about what real strength means. They're gonna have a whole dialogue about it, later in the movie anyway. But it's such a strong open too, and then all the way down to the way that when he unmasks and you see James Earl Jones with that long stringy hair and those big blue eye contact things they threw in him, it's just like, I mean, you are hypnotized. You see why Nordic Mom is hypnotized by that.
Mm-hmm.
And so weird to see him with hair, like
Right?
so much of it.
Right.
It's one of the greatest film introductions ever in cinema. It's amazing. No dialogue. And it just through the way that the cast has, uses their bodies, their body language to each other, all in the eyes. And then the gift of fury playing.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just like, you don't know anything about Thulsa Doom and his raiders and the cult. You don't know anything about Conan's mom. But in that moment, it's like tense and scary and then so tragic. I mean, it's just
That scene where when he like turns away from her so slowly and then he just wheels around and all you see is that head drop off. I mean, and so my frame of reference for that in this time period is Mrs. Voorhees, right? and it kind of works in the same way, except the look on that kid's face. And I don't know, usually you tell a kid in a movie just whatever, you don't tell them what they're in, I don't know what they told that kid, but he was scared out of his freaking mind. like what was happening. And then that woman just drops and his hand's just empty. And it's like, what? I mean, that is a shocking way to start. Like we killed everybody in 2 minutes.
And they don't glorify violence. It's not like he holds on things. And even that scene, the most startling thing is, like you said, it focuses on this frightened kid who's just staring at the hand that was holding his mother's hand. And that's all he sees. And then he looks up and he sees that sign, that
the two snakes over the sun and the moon,
that sigil that will come to know. And it's so ridiculous that this is how the movie starts. And I'm like, where do we go from here? Because this could have been like the crescendo to a lot of movies in some ways. And then it just, the costumes, the sets, everything looks real. And you're just kind of automatically transported to this time. And his dad mauled by armored pit bulls. You don't see that every day.
And they just had to stand there and watch while it happened.
I know, right? It's just
Can't
because there's
get in
nothing
a
else you can
pit
do.
bull fight. No.
I know.
Look, can I give the cult credit for having like a great branding scheme? Like they had incredible logos everywhere. I mean,
They did.
Really had thought that out. It was a well done thing. So I was impressed. But you remember them, right? You can't forget that symbol.
I have never looked at snakes differently since, or the same since I've seen this movie. So yeah.
Yeah, Thulsa Doom's true magic was marketing.
Their brand team, top notch.
But yeah, like from the moment he shows up on screen, you're like, oh, there's this guy's wild.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got that hat with the snakes on it. He's got Prince Valiant's hair. He's a black guy with blue eyes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he just makes the most imperious faces. There's just incredible face work that just makes it look like you're not like Conan's mother getting beheaded is just like him scraping a turd off his shoe.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
nothing to him.
Yeah. And it's
He
Everybody-
doesn't say a word. He doesn't have to say a
Yes.
word.
No.
Mm-mm.
Everybody, when James Earl Jones passed, and everyone was posting clips of his speeches, and stage performances, because he had such an amazing voice, and he uses it in this movie. But what he was able to do with his eyes, he
Yeah.
didn't need the voice. He used the voice to an effect that like nobody on the planet could do,
Yeah.
but he didn't
Mhm.
need it. He
Well,
wasn't just the voice.
He got something in the character the way they wrote it, and it's really and Stone really loved it, and so did Dino De Laurentiis, who was part of the production and all of this. Was that he brought so much gravitas to it because he was a stage actor, and they like worked around his play schedule just to shoot with him on this. But he told them, he's like, I don't need to be big and boisterous and like demonstrative like I am with Darth Vader. I need to be confident. And he came up with the idea of like, I'm the last one of me on Earth, or maybe one of the last ones of me on Earth. So I'm really old and I'm really disaffected. Like nothing affects me whatsoever, but I'm also still really invested in the fact that I don't want to die. And so everything is going to be about that for me as a character. And you can see that come through. And it's just such a neat performance. And we got to give some credit too to Mako, who has the unenviable task of doing the stringing us through, because nobody else has dialogue in this movie for 20 minutes. So we have him doing the little narrations along the way. And I know nowadays people like try to bang on that or whatever, but that was a great storytelling device when used right. And I followed it completely. My point of reference from it as a kid were all those records that would like you would turn in the page with it. It would be
Yeah.
the next one. That's exactly what I thought we were doing. We were just getting the next page. It was like the film.
Yeah.
Well,
Also,
I
with
think
that
it's-
voice, come on,
Yeah,
it's
right?
it's
Yeah.
perfect storytelling
Yes.
voice. Because I there's certain things I can, and he was bred to the finest stock.
Right,
I was
yeah, I
just like,
forgot
what?
that.
I'm like, I've never been bred to the finest stock, and I never will be. Like, this
No,
is-
like how did that happen?
Well, and using the narration, a storyteller, a chronicler who's going to tell you the saga, like this ties it back to the storytelling, old legends, the old sagas, like real world storytelling that human beings, cultures have been sharing and passing down through the ages, right?
Mhm.
And so it ties it to that tradition.
It
of
makes it easy for the
mythology,
audience
legend.
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
accept that too, is that we understand written legend that gets told and written down and passed on. And so 'cause we have, buildings full of them, we, call them libraries and things like that, but we have bookshelves and all that. But even before them, we knew how that happened, and it's just a neat way to get us through about 20 years of stuff, because we're going to put this kid on the mill wheel and he's just going to keep pushing. And, he goes from being a scrawny little punk to he kind of becomes a kind of a gangly tight end. And then all of a sudden he's a defensive end. And he's just, and then when Arnold looks up and he's got that, talk about a mane, by the way, he's got that hair going and he's got that
and you
headband
see
on.
his
and that-
shoulders
I
with the
know.
hair and the
Yeah.
and the score playing. Come on, the Wheel of Pain. There's literally gnashing of teeth. You can
that-
hear metal scratches. It's awesome, man.
You'll
These-
never convince me that's not where CrossFit, like the idea came from. Somebody watched it.
Are you kidding me? Of course it did. Yeah, yeah.
It looks like
Functional
he got
fitness.
it looks like he got bigger throughout the movie too.
Yeah.
I don't know how. I don't know. Maybe
They
he
had
was
to
just
he had to get a bit smaller at times because moving the sword was tough at times because he was so huge.
Yeah. He had to,
Because they don't
like,
have him do big,
yeah.
barbarian movements. I really love the melding of different cultures in this as well, because it's
Mhm.
like, yeah, back then or in an age undreamed of, we wouldn't know. So yeah, there would be Asian influence, there would be Nordic influence, and all these things kind of come together in this melting pot of just
It's
awesome
supposed
story.
to be, all this is supposed to take place in a region where like Russia, Arabia, and Mongolia just kind of all intersect.
Yeah.
Is where this is supposed to take place. That's kind of what Milius thought of, and they shot a lot of it in Spain and stuff, and it fits that. But they also shot in jungles and whatnot. But they went for that look and sort of that thought of, most people don't know where any of these places are anyway, and they would never think that the three of those cross each other, but they do. And so what would that look like in a place where politics aren't what they are today, and so you could just blend in, and there was a lot of back and forth and barter and trade. And yeah, you're dead on, 80. It's that blending of culture that makes it neat. But when you see Arnold, I mean, it's you see Arnold now, and he still looks incredible for his age and stuff like that. But most people think of Arnold, they think of like T2 Arnold and beyond, you know.
Mhm.
But if you go back and watch this and watch him in the original Terminator, you forget how friggin' huge he was. And this is 10 years after his bodybuilding career, y'all. Like that's what's wild, is he used to be bigger.
Yeah. And also how naturally just charismatic. Because there's some people,
Yeah.
they talk a really good game, but the camera doesn't care when they're on screen. You can be, oh man, you're really good. You're acting your ass off right now, but I just don't care. Arnold doesn't have to say a word, and I'm just like invested in what he has to do because the camera just loves the guy. Like it's impossible not to look at him and go, that's not a movie star.
Well,
He was
and
put on this earth for that.
Yeah.
I'm glad he
And
was.
they weren't afraid to linger either, which is not something that you see a whole lot of. So one of the opening scene we talked about, the boy Conan after, his mom's head gets chopped off, and they just linger on him for what seems like almost a little too long, but they cut it right at the perfect time, and they allow the time to just hold steady on Conan's face and among other moments. But that was, I don't know. It's nice that it took its time.
Milius is not an impatient director. If you see any
Yeah.
of his films, like he lets things kind of breathe and just sort of lets the scene work and lets people work. And Arnold will tell you too that he doesn't get a ton of dialogue in this movie, but he said if any of it's any good, you can thank James Earl Jones. He said because he really liked me. He said I don't know why, he just liked me, and he sat there and worked with me on, no, you should say it like this, and you should do it like this. And he was sort of his own little private acting coach. Which is what a hell of an acting coach to just get,
Mhm.
James Earl Jones is going
Yeah.
to do that for you. But you can hear it too. Because I mean, the first line he gets is the famous line of like, "What is best in life?" And he just spits it out. But it shows us something though, because by the end of the movie, when he says that last bit, before the battle about he's praying to Crom, is like, if you're listening to hell with you, like that's perfect Arnold. Like that's the Arnold we know. But he's a very different person at that point. And you see that growth, and that's something that doesn't happen without talent and chops. And Arnold's not I'm not making him out to be some Hamlet thespian or something, but he's got charisma for 100 days, and they all knew it, and they just had to figure out how to get it out of him just right. And what's wild is he barely knew English at this point. Like he was still learning the language, which, I've talked to several students through the years that come here, and their language is, to me, seems so much more complicated. They're like, no, there's nothing dumber than trying to learn American English, because it's so foreign to everything else that makes sense. It has no rhyme and math.
Nope.
Yeah,
It's
the
so
lack
backwards.
of consistent rules is a problem. My mother was learning English when I was a kid, and I was like her little English coach.
Oh, wow.
And she would all the time tell me this English is stupid. As soon as she was able to string the sentence together, that's what she would always tell me. This English is stupid.
Yes, it is.
It's
We agree.
But in addition to Arnold's charisma, he's really, really well known in the acting world, especially. I mean, after the Arnold documentary came out, I think they talked a lot about it. But one of my first acting classes in college, the professor said, who is the hardest working actor in Hollywood today? And people were saying Meryl Streep and, all the big names. And he said, no, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger. He is the hardest working, well known as the hardest working actor, because he knew that it was totally new for him. He was doing it in a different language, and he put so much effort and work behind every single movie he was cast in. And he earned a reputation for just being this crazy workhorse. He would do anything, and he was open to suggestions like James Earl Jones, and he was just really seemed overwhelmingly great to work with. So people kept wanting to cast him and stuff.
It just shows when you treat people nice and you work hard, you can, that can overcome a lot of stuff. But thankfully, you also have Arnold on screen. So like, it's like you said, the camera just loves him, like we said. So all that hard work put on top of it. And it's just, I think that goes a long way with everybody else on the cast, that they'd see that this guy isn't just showing up because he's a 7-time, Mr. Olympia. He's actually putting in the work, and he's there. He's the first one there. He's the last one to leave. It's like, it's easy to kind of get behind that. And then as fans, when you hear that, it's easier to root for the guy. So you're like, yeah, okay, sure. He may have really been stilted when he said, to crush your enemies, hear them turn before you, and to hear the lamentation of the women. Sorry, I had to get that out before.
That was great, by the way.
Thank you. But so even that's a little, you're like, but no, that's what Conan would do, because Conan doesn't talk to anybody. He's been a kid who's been stuck on this wheel, and you're not going to sit there and be like, hey, Bill, how's the wheel treating you today? Like, nobody's talking about the wheel. They're just pushing.
Yeah.
And I do love, Amelia said that they wanted to have skeletons of the kids who died hanging, but he's like,
that's total John
couldn't do it.
Milius.
He's like, we didn't do it. But I was like, oh my God, that would have been amazing. Even more amazing.
Yeah.
That's 100% John Milius' idea.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, but then Conan would have outlived them
skeletons
all.
in here.
Yeah, exactly. But y'all, let's look at the people they put around him. Okay, let's just talk about this. All right, we'll get to Thulsa Doom and his two henchmen in a minute. His sidekicks are, and in real life, a dancer, a surfer, a martial arts expert, and Max freaking von Sydow. Like, who did it because he was like, thank God I can finally emote in a movie again. They wanted to play all these stoic people after The Exorcist. And he was like, can I please just have some fun? And
oh boy, did he ever.
And his kids were into it. And so he's like, yes, I will go and have a blast. But I love it. Like, that's only the kind of thing that John Milius could have pulled off, is that gaggle of people together to do this. Let me get one of Bob Fosse's best dancers, and I got this buddy that's a good surfer, and everybody I keep screen testing, I just keep comparing to him. So he'd probably pull it off, just pull it together, and it's wild. Like that worked. That's what's amazing, because they have to do more of the dialogue. They have to carry this, and it's really good. Like I really have. I mean, I think as a kid, I reacted to them because they were so different than Conan. Like, Subutai is this archer, and he's fast, and he's slick, and he's like a cat burglar, right? And then Sandahl Bergman is this tall, athletic, gorgeous looking, athletic woman and stuff. I mean, I think John Milius said like he saw her and was like, that's a Valkyrie. Like he was just in love with her or something. And because he just knew, he wanted to cast her for this. And you see her and you're like, yeah, I get it. Like it kind of works, but it's so perfect. The story of like the most random, disparate people thrown together can pull off some incredible stuff. It's like any good heist movie, right?
It's interesting to think that this is also the first glimpse you get of Arnold Schwarzenegger being funny.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's got the scene where he punches out the camel.
I laughed so hard. I had headphones in. I was watching it on my phone and I just guffawed. I watched it 4 times. Like I kept going back to rewatch.
It's a great
just
scene.
wait.
And to me, like, even before that, the big punch, which is the big punchline, when he just turns the corner and he sees that alpaca and he's like, what the hell is that thing?
Yeah.
His delivery of that line is just so funny to me.
Yeah.
How does the air
He's like
get in
looking
here?
back at what they're doing. He's just like, what? Yeah, Arnold's very great. Yeah, he's very
so
funny.
confused by all these weird new animals that he's never seen while pushing the wheel in a circle.
Right.
Riding across the steps with a falcon or whatever. and then the scene later on in the movie when he rides the camel into Thulsa Doom's lair, and it's like he's doing such a goofy face that it's like I don't think you would see most quote unquote action stars be that silly. And it's legit. It's legitimately like a Three Stooges or a Harpo Marx face that he's pulling, where he just pops his eyes out, and they're enormous in his head. It's crazy.
He would keep doing it. Paul Verhoeven specifically referenced the Conan movies when he was doing Total Recall, and he had to like bug his face out. He said, "I need you to do the Conan face," and they did. If you remember Total Recall, but I love that because again, it's like we talked about, it's all that charisma coming out, and that's what makes his co-stars work so well with him, right? Because you love Jerry Lopez. The way they meet, right, is he hooks up with that crazy witch lady who's like, "You want to come warm yourself by my fire?" And I'm like, "Run, Conan, run!" Yeah,
Or maybe stay a little bit and then run. No,
I mean,
She gave him some really useful information.
she did. She
She
did.
told- yeah.
There was a price to pay.
He
There
paid
was.
it and clearly paid it well. I mean, you can't
Yes.
control what happens after Arnold does what Arnold
You know.
does. Or sorry, Conan does.
He throws her in the fire, and she like survives that, right? Like she just becomes her spirit version, right, to go inhabit another body.
Yes,
somewhere.
easy. That is a
Okay.
crazy stunt where he
That's
just
a wild
heaves
scene.
this woman into a fire. And
Oh, I'm
just
sure it wasn't
throws-
crazy at all. He probably
It's
outweighed her
the
by 200
best,
pounds.
yeah.
No,
I'm
but I'm
sure
saying
she
it's
was
just crazy
scared to
visual
death.
of just
Yeah.
heaving a
I
human
love
being
it.
like 20 feet in the air, and then he just watches it go away. And then I love that he's just like in Conan, like, I guess I'm just gonna sleep here tonight then. Okay. And be like,
I mean-
no, I'm getting the hell out
No,
of
the
here.
hut's hey, the magic is gone.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Right, the
Nobody knows
spell
the
is-
magic can come back.
The spell is broken. This hut, this perfectly good hut with a fire and food and probably booze.
Toasty.
Good point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
stay the night.
Mhm.
Exactly.
The fact that Jerry Lopez would have been out there listening all night would have been like,
Damn
damn it again. This is
Yeah.
like-
But when he sees him, the first look on his face is very much like, "Oh, you lived," And then they have this whole bit. He's like, "Let me die in battle" or whatever. And he's like, "So what are you supposed to be? Food for wolves?" He's
Yeah.
just kind of good. And it's so funny to hear the way he does that affected accent. But he's got such good comic timing as well. And again, you're talking about a non-actor. Like, this guy is an athlete. He is not an actor. Never had. He talked about he went to Mako's acting classes and just got absolutely schooled because he was not ready for that at all. But he clearly learns how to work. Him and Arnold together are hilarious. Like
Oh,
they're
yeah.
walking through the village like you're talking about, Ron, and they're going through all the stuff. And I know they cut out a scene of Oliver Stone that was supposed to have like the lizard on a stick, which was like the McDonald's of the Hyborian age or whatever.
Yep.
And they cut it, but they keep everything going. And what I love though is that every time Arnold meets somebody, he's asking him the same question. Do you know where I can find the snake cult? Do you know where I can find the snake cult? And it revealed it to me that I never thought about it until this time. This movie at its core is just a straight up revenge movie.
Yeah.
That's really all it is. And to cover the expanse that it does and to do all the things it does and to be that simple it's really impressive to me.
Oh, totally. And I mean, like I was going to say, my online interactions with friends is the equivalent of us running through fields together, kind of becoming friends. And then so that we get that, and you're just like, okay, I get it. They're clearly running for a while, but then they literally sit down and have a talk about their
They talk
different
about
gods.
God.
And like literally Arnold's like trying to like one up him, and then finally he's just like, your God lives underneath him. And I was like, fuck, you're right. Damn it. Like, okay.
Yeah.
But
then they
there's
laugh about
moments.
it.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
They're like forging that friendship. And it's like, we don't have to hear all this stuff. Like, we don't have to know, like, he doesn't have to go, I'm super tired from so-and-so place. Like you said, he had his funny little intro where he like stands up and then he has to eat crow to say, I was caught. I couldn't kill her like you did. She clearly bested me. I've been chained up here. And then they just kind of go from village to village, and he's actually Conan's kind of entry point, because he knows what all this stuff is, because Conan hasn't experienced it. He's literally been like confined his whole life to this. And we didn't even talk about the fact that
He's a gladiator. Yeah.
he goes from being a kid to the wheel to this gladiator where he has to literally fight people. And they cut stuff from that where he like, beheads a woman and holds her head up. I was like, really? That's what you cut?
the way he's stabbing people, and you got Mako the whole time going, he did not care anymore. I was like, no shit. Like, as he's stabbing a guy in the traps, like, yeah.
Only that the crowds were there to greet him with howls of lust and fury.
So basically, that was Arnold. That was Conan working the territories.
Yes.
having to get his experience in before he could go to the show.
Bringing in different people. Yes, you're right, Flynn.
Then we had to come up with the right manager. That was what Subutai was.
Yep.
So, question for the experts. Was revenge on Conan's mind from day one, or did it occur to him after he was freed from being a slave?
I've always taken it personally that when that kid sees that sign, it's embedded in his head that he's like, I'm going to find that guy one day and I'm going to
Someday.
do whatever I can to, because he killed my dad. Well, his dogs killed my dad. He beheaded my mom. He wiped out my entire people. Like nobody even knew they would exist, you know? So I personally think it was from the get-go. As soon as they left there, he's like, one day I will find this ridiculous looking person that no other human being has ever looked like, and I will cut his head off.
Well, it's interesting that you asked that question because in the narration during the pit fighting era of his enslavement, it talks about that life and death the same, right? He stopped, he didn't care anymore. But I think there is that at the core, that desire, that need to avenge his parents and his people that keeps him going, right?
Well, I think he gets back in touch with his roots too, because once he gets freed, after the guy can't really, nobody's going to fight with him anymore, and he's bred him out enough, as Ron talked about. You know, so he got stallioned out. You know, so after he did that, he won the Derby, the Preakness. You know, he did that. He cut loose, and he goes like hiding from a storm, and he runs into a cave, and it's basically a tomb of a buried king who's long been dead, but he's been buried with his sword. And what does he see? He sees the sword that reminds him of his father's sword that was stolen. And he's Crom. You know, he's like, oh, this is, you know, the God that I was told about that I don't pray to, but this is, you know, this is what I know. He's in his earth. And he sees that sword. And when he breaks all the rust off of it and stuff like that, he realizes, now I have my purpose again. I've been freed to go on my revenge tour.
The coolest sword in all of Hollywood
That's a
history.
badass
I don't
sword.
care what you say. I know it's so dumb that half of it doesn't even cut and he can grab onto it. Don't care. I absolutely love the way it looks. I don't care. It's so awesome.
I gotta
Right,
say though,
sword.
there's something that sets this film apart from other revenge films, and it's the underpinning philosophy and this existential journey that Conan takes in learning about the world, learning what is the answer to the riddle of steel. And all along the way, through the people that he meets, the relationships he forges, the enemies he takes on, he goes on this whole journey to figure out what he's really about, what really matters.
Yeah.
Like halfway through this movie, he starts to learn his father was wrong.
Yeah. Isn't that wild? Yeah.
Yeah.
His father did not have the full answer to that. The discipline of the sword was key in getting him to where he needed to go and do the things he needed to do. But in meeting Subutai and we got to talk about the love story with Valeria.
Yeah, we're getting there.
And the wizard, he meets people that they would die for him, that he can trust. He learns about power, the power of will, his will to enact the revenge, the lengths he's willing to go to. Like, there's so much more here than just swinging a sword and sex magic in a hut. This shit is deep, people.
Yeah,
it is.
It is.
Yeah.
Before we
I
go
love
too
it.
far, I want to say sex magic sounds like a rejected Red Hot Chili Peppers album. Andy, to your point, grabbing the base of the blade like that's a perfectly valid technique that was used with, usually with two-handed swords. Typically, you're doing that when you need to crack open like a plate armored knight or something, because only the tip of the sword would be literally the sharp part, and you'd have a gauntlet on, so you can grab the base and kind of use that as a leverage thing. But it's it's one of the things I find interesting about this movie is they seem to take they worked really hard to make Arnold Schwarzenegger look like he knew what he was doing with the sword.
We did like hours of training too. Yeah,
it's big and it's flashy, but like a dude that size is going to be able to whip that thing around like nobody's business.
Yeah,
and they really establish he has not only the endurance and the fortitude of will, like Carmelita talked about, but he has the fortitude and the endurance of the body, because he is just every piece of him. He looks like he's made out of leather when he doesn't have a shirt on. Like it's wild how like bronzed and just shredded he is.
In my head, I always took it that every piece of clothing is something he has killed. you know,
Right.
to
Mhm.
wear at different places and stages. Like he didn't buy any of that shit.
Well, you see him.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he makes his coat out of the wolves that he kills.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So
That's what I'm
that-
He
saying. Like that,
literally
makes sense.
looks off. He literally looks into camera, and then the next scene, he's wearing wolf clothing.
I mean, in
Yeah.
a lesser movie, you would have just heard the little, you know, and that would have been it, you know.
Right,
But
right.
but it is all the people that he meets along the way. And we talked about like when he's running through the fields with Subutai, and you've got that great. It's a great anthem. Again, the music in this movie tells so much of the narration because there is
Yes.
no words, and it doesn't need it. It's almost it harkens back to a different era of filmmaking, but it's so perfect, and it works you through scene to scene to scene. And when they're robbing the snake temple and they come across Valeria and her entry into this, it's like, you're not a guard, neither are you, you know, and just the way she snaps that out. And I was like, this chick couldn't be more New York than if she tried, but doesn't care. I love her whole like thing, like all of her attitude and the way she carries herself and how confident she is. But she's also someone else who's seeking something more than what's there. And that, I don't know, the Valeria character is fascinating to me because she doesn't get a ton of screen time. She's
Nope.
not on it that she's really in about 35, 40 minutes of the movie, but it's some of the most impactful shit in the whole movie.
When she says "you first" and her eyes open, it's seared into my memory banks as a kid. I like. There's one thing I would tell my wife. I'm like, all right, watch this movie. If you can make that face, please do every time you want me to do something. If you need me to take out the garbage, just this first. I'm like, okay, I'll go. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's because when I saw it when I was young, that just stood out to me. Where I'm like, wow, like you said, she's confident. She's not a damsel ever. Like she takes control. She's like, you guys don't even have a rope, you dumbasses. How are you gonna get up there? And he's just like,
Exactly.
we would have managed. Like, it's
Exactly.
and yeah, and as soon as she shows up, like there is a moment where, I mean, Conan never stops on his vengeful quest, but there is a moment I think where he would probably be like, well, this is someone I could definitely spend the rest of my life with. And I guess I could maybe stop this, but no, I can't. But because she's just so strong and so just, man, like she just puts him in his place immediately. And then they rob it and then they go get drunk and then they have a big ass party and like literally they just spend all their money. They just like blow it. I'm just like, man, you wouldn't see that nowadays. You wouldn't see your hero with his face in porridge because he's too hungover. To
Well,
do
no, talk about
anything.
great comedy, by the way. Just this is just
Yeah. Yeah.
that's a great piece of physical comedy. You talked about Marx Brothers earlier, Ron, and I thought about that when watching this. I was like, they feel like he is taking cues from that.
When
And I
she
feel like
pushes
that's
him
something-
over when those
Yeah,
guys come in
that
and he
was so
falls
great.
over and she just looks
Yeah.
down like, you dumbass guy. I've got to do everything around here.
Yes. But their romance, though, is a very interesting part of this story. Carmelita, I wanted to tee that up for you because I know you had a lot of thoughts.
Oh
about
my
that.
God. I think this is one of the greatest love stories ever told. Conan and Valeria. Are you
I'm with you.
freaking kidding me? They are true equals.
Yeah.
They steal together. They run together. They fight side by side. They have really sensual, passionate sex.
That they do.
And he never, ever, ever doubts her
Mm-mm.
being capable, being able to take care of herself, that she'll be there and have his back. And there's just the romance between these two right from the jump is just so believable. You mentioned after that first time when they steal the eye of the serpent and they go back to that inn or tavern or whatever, and she's looking at the jewels and he's got his chin resting on his hand, and the way he's looking at
simping
her,
hard.
I mean,
Smitten.
and you feel it, like,
But she's trying to get a
Oh.
jewel, and boom, he drops that hand
and
down.
he gives it to her,
And he gives it to
right?
her anyway. Yeah,
He gives it to her.
that's what's wild. Yeah,
And they, throughout their story, it's like she knows he wants revenge, and she'll kind of be the voice of reason and kind of give him hey, his followers will die for him. This, and she'll try and kind of give him alternative ideas. Like, let's just abandon that and do this other thing. But she also respects that this is what he needs to do.
Well, let's look at it this way. They were going to climb a tower without a rope.
Yeah.
And she was the one who brought the rope.
Yeah.
She's saying, you have no idea what you're going to be walking into with this snake cult, but I do. Let me fill you in on some details, like the fact that there's thousands of these guys.
Yes.
And you're literally going to have to like saw through a mob of people in white robes, like you're cutting down grass to even get to him if you try to just walk up the stairs.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But
she
just comes through for him, right?
She does.
Even after that, she comes to help him because she knows that's what he needs to do. And so they just have this beautiful story. She comes back from the darkness of death to come to his aid.
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
Yeah. Well, she has one of the best lines in the movie. She gets it twice. You know, when they're first jumping off the things, like, you guys want to live forever? And she just jumps straight off into the pool. And they're like, and I love how they look at each other like, nope. And they just go right after her too. Yep. But she's also, the way she talks to Conan, and even, I'm talking about even before his crucifixion and all that kind of stuff, the way she is like, you know, she's sort of draped over him and talking to him. She's telling him, like, you need to believe in yourself more. You're more than just a barbarian. You're more than just, you don't have to just go kill this guy. You can be more than that. Yeah. I could see it in you. She's really gassing him up.
Yeah.
And not for any like nefarious purpose of her own. She's so pure. That's what's wild, is that she is as much a barbarian as he is, but yet her affection for him is so pure. And it's so neat. And it's such a setting of this kind of story. Like it's missing in so much of the, I guess, the current fantasy kind of stuff. You know, I mean, there's a little bit of this with Catelyn and Ned in the first season of Game of Thrones. Like, you felt like they had that little bit of relationship. And I'm sure George R. R. Martin totally ripped this off for most of the book, because if you read it, it's very much in there. But I was thinking about that. I was like, yeah, that may be the last time I've seen something like that, you know, because we're at a different time. But I don't know. I loved the way that they worked together, you know, and the way that she sort of pushed him to be better than what he was.
They're a team.
Yeah.
When she tells him, I used to walk through and look in the huts and tents of others, and that she's like, and they were, you know, figures holding each other in the cold of the night. And I'm just like, wait, what is happening here? Like this. And it's like, yeah. And then she's just like, please, that's what I want. I don't give a shit about these jewels and stuff. I just want you and me in a hut when it's cold outside. We will have each other. And he's just like, I want that too. Unfortunately,
I have to be.
I gotta go do the thing
I gotta
first.
do first.
To kill this big guy. No, we got to talk about Thulsa Doom and his cult. We've talked about James Earl Jones a little bit. His two main companions here, though, man. Okay, I love these two guys. So first, Ben Davidson. I remember seeing like NFL films of the meanest defensive players that ever existed. You know, he just decapitates guys, you know, on the field. So the fact that they got him, he's almost 6'8". He's huge. He's still in incredible shape. And as John Milley said, that guy didn't do anything half speed. He did it all full speed. So we handed him axes, and we're like, "Woo, we better give him the plastic ones because he's gonna hurt somebody." They asked him to. They were blocking out a scene once, and they asked him, "Hey, throw me." You know, Milley said, "Hey, throw me up against this thing," and he said he threw me up against the piece of the set, cracked 2 of my ribs, and broke the set. Because he said, that's when I realized Ben doesn't do anything half speed. He was such a presence as kind of the right hand of Thulsa Doom. And then you have the left hand, which is, you know, Arnold's buddy, Sven Ole Thorsen, you know, who is in a ton of movies with him always. And he's more or less his stunt double in a lot of ways. But he's just this big guy. And I love how, you know, the way that Thulsa Doom talks about it is like, poor Rexor, he's just beside himself with grief after that snake died. And this big hulking guy's like,
he raised it from birth.
A little snake on his neck, like, he killed my snake.
Yes, exactly. Like that. But I love that trio of like bad dudes, you know, because later, you know, a few years later, I would see things like the Road Warriors as a tag team and go like, it's those two guys from Conan the Barbarian. It pretty much was.
Right. And this movie spoiled me as a kid, because you see all these guys who, Jerry Lopez, you got Sven, you got Ben Davidson, even the guy who plays Conan's dad was like, I think he spoke multiple different languages and worked for like the CIA on top of being a like part-time actor. Everybody shows up and like delivers lines where as a kid I'm just like, oh, this is what acting is. Like nobody seems like they're just reading off of a cue card or anything. And then as I grew up and see movies, I'm like, wait a minute, not everybody can act apparently. So it's one of those things where I'm like, man, this movie really like spoiled me, because everybody, even that guy, when he like turns around and he's, he doesn't say much, Ben, but when he has to yell or do something, like he's there and it's just like, oh my gosh. Yeah. And then really Sven just has to look sad and then just, just pet his snake.
Oh.
And you feel for him, because he's like, Rexall raised that since he was a child. I was like, oh, what? We're talking about snakes like they're children.
Yeah, let's talk about when they invade and that snake, that big ass snake, is asleep, and Arnold's sweating, or Conan's sweating so bad he wakes the snake up. That, I mean, talk about a great piece of puppetry.
Yeah,
that was awesome looking, and
I loved that.
Oh, it looks so, and it still looks good. And I used to think like that's sort of ridiculous that the snake's making this noise. I'm like, I don't know, if there was a snake that was 60 feet long and it hissed, it probably would be loud as hell like that. Like it's just blowing air at you.
Well, and magic, right? That's the beauty of high fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
This is a world with magic, and it's not really our world. So how would I know?
Yeah, snakes could make any noise
sounds
there.
like. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And there's that awesome scene where Arnold's underneath it and the stuntman shoots arrows inches over his shoulder.
That's not the stuntman. That's John Milius.
That was John Milius, right? Shooting it. You're right.
He turned out to be the best archer, he said, which was, a little disconcerting to be firing arrows right at Arnold, but he didn't seem to mind. So
my star, who's underneath, and one of the most coolest, when Jerry Lopez throws Arnold's sword and he catches it and just turns in one swoop. I'm just like, this is why I watch movies for stuff.
Right. Yeah. But it's awesome though. Like you see that great effect, and then all the practical stuff around it with all the real snakes and all that stuff. And like that, man.
And then the poor naked woman who jumped down to her death is just screaming because the snake's withering. And the guy's like, what the damn it. And then
so I got questions about the cult, and for the room,
about this.
Please help me with this. There seems to be an emphasis on a lot of orgy action going on. So we got a little Caligula going on, right? We got snake stuff, but then like we'll pause and we'll do odd trances until half-naked women throw themselves to be fed to a snake. Like, is it like part of the ritual? Is that like how you move up clearances? Like, how does this work? I don't understand this religion.
Well, Thulsa Doom, when he's talking to the children of Doom in a later scene, talks about, are you ready, for the emptiness? To empty yourself, right? This is what's so cool. See, I'm your Conan theologian. I love all this like religious stuff.
There should be a bullet point in your resume, by the way. Like, Conan theologian.
Conan theologian.
Updated
I love
social media bio.
The story has shown us that in this world, religions coexist. People of different cultures have different religions, and everyone is just doing their own, worshiping their own gods. The cult of Set is very threatening because it's converting people.
Yeah.
That's why Osric sends them, these thieves, to go steal back his daughter.
Yeah.
Because she's been converted, right? And I think too, it's Crom is a god that is all about you be self-reliant. I'm not answering any prayers. No, you need to be strong. You need to do for yourself, and you'll get your reward in Valhalla when it's all over.
Could give two shits about you as a person on this planet.
You have to be strong. You have to do for yourself. And what's interesting about the cult of Set is that, like, no, you need to completely submit, give up your will to Thulsa Doom and let him direct you. And this is clearly too, this is kind of a jab at hippies, right? And the whole like Eastern religion of
very much so, yeah.
Oh, yeah. The whole New Age.
I think Oliver Stone and John Milius.
Mako even laughs at him when he's like, when they're like walking, banging their little, the children of Thulsa Doom during my favorite scene, which is when Conan's riding to find them, and
Yeah.
the most beautiful music ever put to album is played. And he's just like, they told my lord to cast. He just goes, ha, just making like basically like hippies move along. Yeah, you're right, totally.
But it's interesting because even like the people in the town talk about who I forget what they were buying from the guy, maybe drugs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was
Probably
drugs.
lizards, drugs, something.
And he was like, everything was great till those Sit cultists move in. Those towers are everywhere.
Right.
I walk without hitting a snake.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
They're like Walgreens. They're everywhere.
Well, or they're like, the big mega church has taken over
Yes.
and started to pull people in.
Mhm.
But the way James Earl Jones plays it, though, a lot of times when he's addressing the crowd, I got a lot of like Jonestown and all of that.
Absolutely.
And he's definitely playing up on some of that, just brainwashing and stuff.
Well, he
And
has
it's-
that whole flesh is more powerful than
Yes.
steel
Oh.
speech,
Yeah.
Yes,
which
that's an
is super
incredible speech.
powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when you talk about like the riddle of steel, and when Conan learns that not enough, because it's not, and Thulsa Doom's not wrong. That's what's wild
No,
about this,
I
is that you
know.
listen to him and you're like, he's evil, but he's not wrong.
Mhm.
He's like that when he gets that, goes, come to me, and she just jumps to her death.
Come,
He's
my
like,
child.
that
Come.
is power. And,
Yes.
and then he just ends the sermon. He's like, crucify, and he just walks away. When he said, it's a cold line. It's like,
crucify him.
whoa,
It's
that's
the
rough.
best.
The way Thulsa Doom tells Conan when he goes, oh, must have been when I was younger. It's almost like
Yeah, he's
Raoul-
forgotten it.
It's
Yeah.
almost like Jean-Claude Van Damme's Street Fighter when Raul Julia goes, for you was the greatest day of your life. For me, it was a Tuesday. Like that's exactly
Right.
how Thulsa Doom is
Yeah.
like, I did that? Oh, yeah.
Oh
well,
yeah, I used to do that. I
I
remember
used
kind
to do
of.
that stuff, but now I don't anymore because steel's dumb. It's
Well,
weak compared to the hand that wields it, and I'm just like,
But it shows something though, like Conan's whole world is wrapped up in that moment of his people being wiped out. Everything else that he's gone through, everything else he's experienced, Valeria, all of it, it's still secondary to that memory for him. And Thulsa Doom says, like it
doesn't
didn't
matter
even
anymore,
matter.
yeah.
And that's that moment of realization that everybody comes to at some point, but that a hero comes to, and realizing that the defining moment of your life is not the defining moment of your enemy's life. They may not even remember they did it.
Yeah.
And it's and how just infuriating, but also just demoralizing could that be at that moment?
Well, it gets even juicier later when their final confrontation, not to jump too far ahead, but just in this context of what he says, Thulsa Doom says, what have I been but a father to you?
Yeah.
yeah,
Like through your need to kill me is giving you the strength and the will to live this whole time. Like,
Yeah, well, like there was a movie in the 2000s that ripped that off in a very violent way. But in the third Transformers movie, when when good old Megatron is going, what would you be without me, Optimus Prime? And he just flips that mask up and said, time to find out. And he fucking decapitates him. I was like,
yep.
well, somebody watched Conan, and his name's Michael Bay.
yeah.
Because it was
Well,
a very
and that's
Conan
the thing,
moment.
right? Like
Yeah.
Conan gets to figure out like, okay, yes, this was this driving thing, but what really matters, right, is himself, his
Exactly.
own resilience, his own development as
Right.
a person.
And that's the thing he has to learn. We talk about he gets caught, in all of this. We skipped over the Max von Sydow scene, and I want to talk about that for a minute because
Yeah.
he just chews it up. He's only in the one scene, and you can tell he's just having a blast. They've ripped him off. He rests him, and he just laughs at him. He's like, good job. It's almost like,
ate him.
yeah. It's very Ocean's 13, if you will, where now Terry Benedict's gonna get him to help him, and so you get it. You get those people to go here, take all the jewels you can get. Just bring me back my daughter. And I love his whole speech, though. He's like, Thulsa Doom's promised her all of this stuff as if I couldn't buy it for her, as if I couldn't do it. And I'm like, you realize like that guy's whole philosophy is wrong too.
Yeah.
This is like, yeah, money can buy a lot of things, but it can't buy loyalty, my friend.
Right. But
Which
he,
they cut the scene where he gets killed by his
Yeah.
own like people, and I kind of wish they had left it because it would have made more sense that like no, even your own people are infiltrated with this mess.
true. Yeah.
Mm.
So good. So good.
But it sets him on the moment, and when they hang him on that tree, as a kid, I didn't realize what was happening to him. I thought they tied him to a tree and some buzzards came after him. I didn't understand what crucifixion was at that point. Like much
Same.
older, learned that, and now you can see it. It's obvious. I mean, they nail him straight through. It's
Yeah.
and if you know anything about crucifixion, you don't die from those wounds. You ultimately asphyxiate because you can't hold yourself up anymore.
Correct.
That's the whole point. And it's a slow, long, arduous, painful way to die. And the makeup job they do on Arnold during that, it's horrifying.
I don't know how much of it's makeup. I think he was burnt out in the sun like just all day. I don't think. And then the fact that he literally, I love that it shows ultimately deep down, even though we talk about the underlying, themes in this movie and everything else, it does boil down to when you're on death's doorstep, Conan will bite your neck to survive, and he will like nothing. He even with his last breath, he will try to live.
Buzzard.
And then he looks
That's so
over and
good.
sees Subotai, and he's just like, ha ha, like,
Yeah,
too late.
But they're still coming. And so I have the question for the room: does he die there, and then they have to get the magic to resurrect him, or is he just really, really low powered?
I took it as he died.
Oh, I took it as he's at death's door because death hasn't come for him yet, and that's what they were trying to ward off.
Like the Princess Bride, mostly dead.
kind of, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, very much like that.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
I've always taken it as death.
Yeah,
He's definitely mostly dead, if not
Easily
all the way
mostly
dead.
dead.
I can't. Sometimes when I watch it, I think, well, he's almost dead. Sometimes I watch it, I think, well, he sees Subotai and laughs, and then that's when he dies. It's
Yeah.
like, if you'd just come here like 15 minutes earlier, I would
Yeah.
have shoot
They
that
are
guy's neck open.
poking at him like he's dead.
Yeah.
But the fact that I don't know, I don't in this magic world, do you die and then the demons or angels of your gods come for you like 3 days later?
Right, this is a
maybe? You
question.
just like
It's a good
stay there.
question.
Yeah.
So maybe he is dead, but in this world, your soul doesn't get lifted out for several days. I don't know.
I
be.
love Valeria's conversation with the wizard, though. When she gets to him, she's like, "The gods owe you any favors?"
Yeah,
and he's
that
kind of
was
like,
a great line.
But the way she says it, you're like, "Oh, girl, you gonna pay for that? Like, you don't
Yep.
do that." It's like
You
But
don't
she's
mess with
willing
death.
to do it. She never
But
questions it.
That's well, when they're painting him up and she's sitting there holding his face, and that whole thing she says, like, "I'd come back from the pit of hell for you," and then you see her do it 20 minutes later, But like, I'll never leave you. We'll never be separated ever. And I don't know if he's hearing that in his spirit head or whatever, because we do have that really great scene where he's floating and the
And she's fighting
ghosts
off
from
demons. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the
like-
demons from Patrick Swayze's ghosts are coming after him at that point. So, I mean, that's all that's happening. And so all but you talk about, again, a movie that it was made for $20 million. And in today's dollars, that's like $68 million. They didn't have any money for this. And the fact that they got that out of it is amazing.
I was going to
And-
say, honestly, most of the effects I feel like held up pretty well. And I watched it on 2 different screens because eventually I moved it to an actual TV and not my phone. And it still looked good.
Yeah, it looks
Yeah,
tremendous.
it looks
Yeah.
fantastic.
And in HD, because sometimes
Yeah.
effects on our little sad TVs, over the years, it would still look okay in standard definition. But as soon as you
They-
kick something up to HD, you go, oh,
Yeah.
They've cleaned it up. Like they've done a
Yeah.
good job,
It looks
like
good.
cleaning it and keeping it looking. But it looked good to begin with. I mean,
It
I
did.
think everybody said like it was photographed beautifully. And again, Millie's had a great eye, and
Yes.
the people
Yep.
working on this knew what they were doing, and it looks good. But that's a great scene. But like, okay, that's going to come back. But when he's like armoring back up and he has to like patch his wrists up because they've been nailed through and all that shit.
And he's just looking at them.
Yeah, and he's just getting his grip back, and he's getting that sword, and he does some of those great poses, You're like, they're about to go down hard. And when they're putting on all that makeup, like they're Ramboing up, they're camoing. I was like,
is
okay.
anything more badass?
I
That's
actually love
awesome.
the scene right before that where they're sitting around the fire and Subotai is talking and they're just and he's just sharpening his sword,
Yeah.
not saying a word. And then he just kind of looks and she even says, we could do this if we were smart. Like, she's like, now Conan, can you do that? And he just looks at him, and he's just
not gonna lie.
And then literally they ride off, and he just, goes up. Mako looks at him, he just kind of nods his head, and literally he does not talk again until if you watch the extended cut, when he's literally talking about being a young boy with Subutai, but long swatches of him not saying anything, but acting his face off and just showing you so much emotion. And then you're right. I think the coolest looking camo ever, because when they're in that, when it gets, shadowy, they do like disappear into the like shadows somehow. I'm like, wow, that must have went through multiple different iterations of makeup to see what would look the best when it gets shadowy in that little cultist cannibal orgy that we're going to talk about.
It also helps that everyone's too busy.
They're a little too busy.
Human soup or
that's the
sex.
secret, like that Milia said, that would be the big reveal of this. Ultimately, this cult is that they were cannibals. Like, ultimately, that's what they were. That was of all their sins, that was their greatest sin.
Right.
It was that they were cannibals, right? The forbidden fruit of that. And I was going to ask you though, Ron, when they're putting on that camo stuff, like, I kid you not, I flashed forward a few years to Arnold on a beach with Ray Don Chong doing the same thing in Commando. It's almost the same damn pattern without the white accent, but it looks
Predator. It's almost like the way he puts
it's very Predator
stuff on a
too.
Predator. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole point is you don't want to create a silhouette that can be easily spotted, because people are our eyes are attuned to like seeing shapes that have human patterns. We're that's how our eyesight works, as we see patterns and shapes. Like, and the acuity is you pick out the man-shaped pattern is a lot easier to pick out, unless you do the camouflage like they did with the black and whites. If you ever look at any of like the World War II warships, have you ever seen the paint jobs on those, the camouflage paint?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
they look insane to us, but like if you're looking up at them through like a submarine periscope or looking down at them from like a bomber, it just looks like ocean. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's wild how that works, but I love how they sneak into that temple and the way that the whole thing is lit. You were talking about Temple of Doom earlier, Andy. I've got like this whole Temple of Doom like the feel on it, and they're scooping that plastic hand up. It felt like Hamburger Helper's hand just kind of popped out of the soup there, But they're doing all that, and the fact that Conan's is not only there for revenge, he's going to Samson that place. He's bringing the whole damn thing down. We're taking everybody out.
There is that moment when they all peek up over, and he's like snickering to almost where she has to like elbow him, like, seriously? Come on.
Stop laughing. Yeah.
Also, to go back to them painting up, I've always felt bad. Subutai has to put his own paint on, and it looks like shit. Arnold and hers are it looks really well done. I was like, man, the poor guy has to do it. He's just like, don't worry, guys. I'll do it myself. I'm fine.
It's hard being the friend
It
to
is
a
hard
couple. The single friend
being
to a
the
couple.
third wheel.
He's the extra wheel.
The third wheel of pain.
That's perfect. So, but I mean,
Andy
really,
and I are going to start a CrossFit gym called Wheel of Pain, and
Yeah.
it's going to be a
Really? Yeah.
weighted wheel that will get people to push around in a circle for like 2 hours. It'll be great.
yeah, listening to the soundtrack,
The Anvil of
course,
Crime. Yes, perfect.
as you must. But no, I love this attack and the way it all goes down. The big fight. It's his first time to go up against Rexor and Thorgrim. Really to get another shot at him. And I love Ben Davidson when he looks at him. He's like, you son of a bitch, we killed you. And you think that's going to be the end. But it's not. It's not the blow-off match. It's the middle.
It's the
one.
precursor. It's
Yes,
like
yeah.
it's the primer match.
Yeah.
The one you're like, I
Exactly,
can't wait
yeah.
for the pay-per-view.
Exactly. Right? We're not going to give that away on free TV, Eric Bischoff. You got to pay for the real one. And so, but they go at each other. I mean, it's slaughter all over the place. And I didn't realize it until years later. But watching this time, I was like, man, this looks like if Tom Cruise all of a sudden just picked up a sword and eyes wide shut and started cutting the fuck up on people, man. Because it's the same masks and the same activity going on, as it were.
Yeah, a lot of things.
So yeah, there's a lot of similarities there. Maybe
Give me
Stanley
that
was a
movie,
fan.
Jay. Let's make that happen.
Yeah. Subutai has one of my favorite moves in that entire fight when he literally is coming down those steps he literally is like hacking some, and I'm like, man, you look at how he fights compared to everybody else. Like all of his cuts are super precise and quick.
Yeah.
And then Arnold's equally great, but he's just like literally shunk, shunk. And then
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
he literally picks up and they start playing the drums, and he's just lifting
the
that
soup
vat of soup, and then all of it, and he just pushes it down, and then it hits that pillar. And then when, you know, Sven hits it with the hammer, and then he looks up, he's just like, I can do this. Like, even there's moments of like levity in the most violent situations in this movie. And I love that, you know, Milius has that wherewithal to go, okay, this character he's so dumb. All he does is raise snakes, and he's not the talkative one of the group.
No.
So just have him look at his hammer, look at that, and go, huh? Like,
right. Yeah. And then it falls on him like a big, like, again, like a Marx Brothers joke, you know? And that's
like, sorry, buddy, I didn't mean to do that.
But that's the thing that I love about Conan, though, in particular, is every time he gets in a fight, he comes out looking like he got beat to hell. Like he comes out getting cut, he gets beat up, like he takes a beating, you know, through the whole time. And that's what I love about him as a hero, is that he doesn't come out unscathed, and he knows it. And it's just, that's what makes him great, is that he's not perfect.
Every fight he learns something, and he will not make that same mistake in the next one. So basically just, you know, showing how smart Conan is. Because a lot of my friends would always be like, Andy just likes this movie because it's, you know, swords and boobs and this and that. And I'm like, no, there's moments where literally some of my favorite scenes are just Arnold looking off in the distance thinking, because you're showing there's more behind Conan than just violence and just the swords and all this stuff. Like there's an underlying thoughtfulness that we don't get in a lot of ways in some action movies or heroes, where, sure, granted, it plays well because Arnold couldn't speak English very well, so he didn't have to worry about speaking, but he's just looking off and thinking all the time.
Well, to back up a step, though, too, right before they hit their attack, they're going in there to kill everybody because Thulsa Doom is there.
Right.
And somehow he knows this. And so he does that great, I mean, it's just all face acting. And that transformation, that freaked me the hell out as a kid. It still freaks me out to this day.
It looks great.
Oh, God. I mean, I remember when I first saw the Thriller video, I was like, oh, I've seen this before. Like, I mean, it's the same. It's this, you know, that's my, you tell when I grew up, that's my point of reference for this shit. Because I didn't see American Werewolf in London until years later with these two. So,
True.
You know the one that got me as a kid? Clash of the Titans, Calibos.
Yes,
Oh,
Calibos.
yeah.
Yeah.
When Calibos transforms, and then when you see him full on.
We're going to talk about Calibos next time, so hold that thought.
Yeah.
He makes a cameo in the next movie for about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But no, when James Earl Jones turns into the snake and slithers away, but they don't know that, and then they still go through with the attack, you're like, you know, as the audience, something now that they don't know, which makes it fun because you're like, oh, wait a minute, they're going to do all this shit and it's not going to matter because Vader's not there. You know, they're not getting to who they want to get to.
He even has his little hole built in purposely for him to, you know, sneak out.
Right. But even after all that fight, they're getting away. He comes back. And he's comforting his two friends who've knocked each other out in pure Three Stooges fashion. And it's another great James Earl Jones speech. He's like, they'll run with rivers of blood. You know, he's just so matter of fact, and it's chilling, man. It's scary.
Yeah, because he's not screaming, he's not talking angrily. He's just like, you know, they will run with rivers of blood, and it's just, you're like, oh God. And then when he sees them riding off, and he just takes that snake and just goes, seek. I'm like, oh no, like nothing good can come from this.
Like you get shot with an arrow, but it's also a poisonous snake.
Ooh.
Ow. And the way she plays it too, that it's
yeah,
a great piece of like Foley work and acting right there. Because it's a thunk, and it's like, oh, but she's toast, you know.
I love that before that though, Valeria gets her awesome badass moment where they're trying to get away, and she's like, I got this. And she turns around and literally jumps off the wall, hits that one dude, and just starts patting her sword on her hand.
Like which one's getting
what
it
are you
first?
gonna do?
Yeah,
exactly.
She has a great moment, but then when she gets shot off the horse and he has to come and get her, you know, and she's talking about being cold, you know, keep me warm, like you talking about Carmelita. All she wanted was to be in a hut with him. You know, and now she said, oh, I had to pay the gods back. I knew it. Dadgummit. And, you know, like she knew it. And it's like, Oh,
And
Oh,
Arnold's
so-
face when he turns around and looks back at that Snake Mountain, you're like, uh-oh.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
He will stop truly at nothing to
Right.
take
Well,
Thulsa Doom down.
Her last words,
Let me breathe breath into your
Yeah.
mouth.
my last
My
breath
last
into
breath.
your
Right?
mouth.
I
Yeah.
mean, right?
Almost as bad as sand. It's coarse, it's rough, it gets everywhere. Like it's that level of kind of
Oh, it's amazing.
romance that's just
it's
wow,
right up there. It's right up there with what is it? I traveled oceans of time for you in
Mhm.
Dracula.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
that same thing.
Yeah.
I'm a cynic, folks.
No,
but
it worked. Yeah.
What do they say about cynics being failed romantics, or what is it, or disappointed
Oh,
romantics?
we're the
or-
most hopeless of romantics. Yes.
It's in there. It's in there. And when she says that, it's just like, oh my God, you're
Yeah,
killing me.
But
with
you know,
this.
he has to lay her out in the funeral pile and all that, and then you see him, and like you said, it's only in the extended cut version, but him and Subutai have a hell of a conversation when they're kind of, you know, cutting wood sticks and all that,
Yeah.
and they talk about like, this reminds me of, you know, walking through the fields in the spring with my father or whatever, and you know, they go back and forth, and he says, "There's no spring for people like us, only the
No.
coming of the wind before the storm," and it's
Yeah.
like, shit, that's deep, man.
It
Like,
is
this
deep.
movie goes in a place that I didn't expect it to go.
And it has my favorite line in the entire movie when Subutai comes down, when Mako goes, "Fire won't burn up there," and then literally it starts up, and when he comes down, he goes, "Why?" Like, he's like, "Why are you crying?" He goes, "Because he is Conan. He will not cry, so I cry for him." I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
God. I've literally said that to all my friends when something happens. I'm like something happened in their life and I was crying for them, and my wife goes, "What?" I was like, finally, I get to use it.
but no, there's I've seen that happen, you know,
Yeah.
with different family members and friends in different situations and stuff, and it tells you how deep their relationship is too.
Yes.
You know, and that they've just been through it, you know, together and stuff like that, and
And then he rips his old warrior,
Mhm.
barbarian or pit fighter sign off, and he's like,
Yeah.
"Get the fuck out of here."
he's done. Yeah,
I'm putting the stone that I gave to
putting
her that we
her
stole together.
stone back on. Yeah,
Come
so
on.
which James Cameron would rip off in Rambo too. You know, so for similar reasons, though not nearly as deep.
No,
No.
it doesn't quite hit as hard.
Nor
I mean,
as hard.
No.
But you know, I digress.
This is the first time I've ever noticed that Conan, the symbol he takes off is the wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a wheel,
Right?
Yeah.
And it's got the spokes on it, like the wheel that he was pushing around as a childhood, like in his
Yep.
childhood. And it's amazing that I noticed this on watching it on my phone, like trying to put my daughter to bed. That it's just a neat little detail that says, okay, he's got nothing. He's ready to just give it all away. Like there's no. This is it for him.
Well-
he's gonna kill Thulsa Doom or he's gonna die,
Well,
but there's
he-
no backing off.
He and Subutai know they are coming for them now. Like they're coming. Like they know where we are. It's not gonna be hard to find us.
No,
They're
this
coming
is-
for us. So we have one choice. We can either lay down or we can go out the way we want to go out. So they arm up, ready to the teeth. And I love their whole little battle encampment. I love Mako with all of his shit that he can't
Yeah.
barely carry, you know. All that, and the way that they lay that all out, and you know they're building all the traps, and you're just watching the big Rube Goldberg spike of death.
Oh,
I'm like, ooh, who's
you
gonna get
can't
that?
you can't wait for that to happen, and boy, does
Right.
it pay off.
Yes,
Oh.
yeah.
So
So we're
good.
gonna get all of that, but then Arnold gets his acting moment
He does.
right there. I mean, yeah, he had it with Jerry Lopez there with the little spring talk, but it's when his prayer to Crom as they are riding down on him. That is some of the best shit that guy's ever spit out of his mouth. It
Yep.
is unbelievably good.
Yeah, and I love how it juxtaposes to the opening scene where they rode in and nobody knew they were coming, and now, oh, guess what? When we're ready for you guys, it doesn't matter. Two will stand against many, and that's all that matters. Whether
Right.
he lives or dies doesn't matter. It's that two stood against many, and that good fought against evil. Basically,
Yeah, and
it's just-
we didn't cower into the night, pretty much.
Yes.
And they do not. They go out hard.
And-
Everybody gets a
Oh,
moment too.
that
It's
first
great.
axe hit as a kid, I literally
Oh.
levitated out of my seat. I was like, blood spraying everywhere. I was like, yes, this is why I watch movies. I was like,
And-
where was
and
this in
you-
the second one?
And you
We'll
know,
get there.
Oliver Stone was like, no, that's not how this spike pit would work. They would start up at the top of the hill. He would shoot them. Then they would roll down. You got to have the spice cantilever pointed towards the victim. So he was giving them just full advice and like, this is how you put up punchy sticks.
Yep. No, he would know. It felt very much like a guerrilla warfare.
And it feels
encampment.
very like a lot of things in this movie. Like we talked about earlier, we talked about the moments of levity that you get in the middle of these crazy combat situations. Like there's this bloody sword fight, and then they stop and there's like a joke.
Yeah.
And you know 100% that that's informed by Oliver Stone's time in Vietnam.
Oh, for sure.
And
Yeah,
like
1000%.
Yes.
when that Rube Goldberg thing hits and Arnold looks, he almost walks up. He's like, "Does it hurt?" Like, he just wants to-
Yeah, or when Mako stabs that guy, he stabbed with a spear. Then he stabs like, "Please help me!"
I did it.
And he
With
just-
my spear.
Yeah, they have that whole moment. You know, it's like I can't believe it. I find that actually worked. But you're right. The killer moments are Rexor. He's got a trap set up with a helmet, so Rexor swings that big old hammer, and that triggers the spring to just pin him against the rock.
And that sound is etched in my that and then you just see
Yeah.
the stuff hanging off the back of it. I'm just
Yeah,
like,
all the entrails, and it's great. And he just walks up to him like, "Now you with your snake," you know, or whatever. But
and then the most badass sword fight when they're swinging those things. And I mean, how
You
did he not like? Oh, the fucking clavicle shot against the rocks gets me every time because
you got two big guys swinging big old swords at each other, and it is as violent as you think it could be. Like it, and the fact that he is about to go down, and then out of nowhere, the ghost Valeria blocks it and gives him that line, like, "You're gonna
Looking
live
like a
forever."
Valkyrie.
Exactly. Yes.
shiny, gorgeous as ever in white and gold and silver. I'm like,
Right. And then he gets up and whoops his ass. I mean, that and
breaks his father's sword, breaking the
Yes.
curse that he's had for the last
That-
30
and
years
that-
of his life.
I'm glad you said that, because it hit me this time that I was like, this is you breaking the thing that you've hated the most. This is Return of the Jedi when Luke Skywalker cuts off Vader's hand
And throws his
and
lightsaber.
then throws it away, is because he knows he's done with that moment. But the way he cuts Ben Davidson up, I mean, you would expect him, like in today's movie, he would just stab him or decapitate him or something. No, he does what you do with a sword, with a broadsword. You cut him to pieces, and he just falls over in the hump of your goo, as it were. And it's a hell of a scene when he picks that broken sword up, you know, and brings them together. Yeah, I mean, what a scene.
As a kid, I was always pissed that Conan's dad's sword broke because I'm like, wait a minute, no, that's what. But yes, as you get older, you're like, no, that's symbolizing everything that Arnold's been going towards, and then the fact that that's what he carries with him to use against all. It's not. He doesn't have to bring out his big king sword. It's basically, no, I'll just take this shard of what you stole from me and basically put me on this whole path.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the scene after that when he's cutting down people that they cut out of the, it's the longer version again. It just shows him using that sword. It's just like, it's a little knife, and he's just hacking the shit out of everybody he comes in contact with while Thulsa Doom's giving his big speech to everybody. But
So I had a question for y'all. Thulsa Doom is doing his final speech there, or whatever. Is he like doing the Jonestown? We're all going to drink the Flavor Aid now, or is he trying to like get all these people to kill themselves so like power him up and he can move on?
I thought so too.
That was always my interpretation of it. It's like the Zap Brannigan technique in Futurama. I'll throw wave after wave of my men at you until you're out of ammunition, or until you're too tired to raise your sword, and then I'll do something. But that's what I've got all these expendable goons around to like you said, the power of the flesh. Like, what better way to stop Conan than by overwhelming him with like 1 million people or like 1,000 dudes in robes?
Yeah.
So you think he's charging him up to get ready to go for a fight? Is what's happening?
Yeah, I think so.
That's pretty wild.
Well, they've been setting up temples everywhere, right? So if this couple hundred die, I mean, no biggie.
I've got a couple thousand over there. Yeah.
Right.
that's
I mean,
fine.
not to someone like Thulsa Doom, right?
No. Yeah, life doesn't matter to him. Only his does. Like, he doesn't give a shit about anybody else. And then, Carmelita, you're right. That when Conan turns to him and he calls him my son, it made my blood boil as a kid, and it still makes my blood boil to this day, where I'm like, you don't get to call him that, but I know why he's doing it, of course. And then
That's the thing. He's not wrong though.
No, he's not.
And
Arnold
Conan
knows it.
registers it.
Yes, Conan kind of goes, "Damn it, you're right." And then
Yeah.
I love that he doesn't take him out with a clean stroke.
No,
it's like 5 or 6 hacks.
Yeah, it takes
Right?
a while.
And
Yeah.
you know that he could.
Yeah.
He could have lopped his head off with one stroke.
Yeah, but it's not.
Thulsa Doom doesn't deserve a clean death. Right?
I've always taken that as two things. One, the sword's broken, so it's not in its best condition anymore, right?
True.
He's also, as you say, he's hacked through a lot of other people with it too, so it ain't got much left. But he wants that guy to know. Just like I had to stand there and my mother had to stand there and my father getting eaten by your dogs had to sit there and know that they were dying. I want you to know you're dying. And moreover, I want all of these fools out here in front
To see it, yes.
to see it in all of its glory. I want them to know you are done. It is a powerful moment.
And that you die just like anyone else, right?
Yeah.
True. You are not. Yes.
Something Conan's father did get right at the beginning of the story when he's talking about how steel came to man was that they're not gods, they're just men, right?
Yeah.
And Thulsa Doom is just a man. However powerful he is, however old he is, he's just a man.
Well, it's the point of when he cuts his head off and he's holding it up and the body just falls and he just chucks it and everything
The
cuts
sound.
except the sound.
I mean, going down.
That to me, like, the music has carried this movie, and to have the wherewithal to go not there and to just drop it and it's just that noise. Wow. That was neat. And then the look on everybody else's face, it's like the veil got lifted and they're just like, okay.
Guess we'll go home now.
I guess we'll just throw our candles out to the most beautiful, harp playing in the back. You just hear the strings, and then Arnold's just sitting there watching, just kind of.
Well, he's sitting there. I don't know if you'll notice that. It took me a while to ever catch this. He's got the princess.
Yeah.
He's got her. He's like, you ain't going nowhere. We're going right back to dad.
Like, killing Thulsa Doom kind of broke their trance that he had put them in, it seemed like.
Yeah.
So when the first priestess, or I don't know what their titles are, but when she threw her candle into the lake and then everyone else kind of felt like they woke up and then just sort of walked off, was like, all right.
The fact that everybody walks off, he's there with the princess, and the last thing he does is grab one of those big, candle holders and swings it, shot puts it into that temple, and it just all lights up. Now, I got questions about how physically can that work, and I'm going to take it as just weird magic, or whatever, because it looks cool. It's so cool. He burned it all down.
Yep. I love in the extended version when he goes to leave, or he walks after doing that, the princess is still looking for something, and she kind of bows to him, and he just walks right past, and when she looks up, there's like nobody there except what she was going to follow, burning, and then she looks back and he just pulls out his hand and then carries her all the way home. Like it's like
literally carries her back to her dad.
But I love that moment because it's like it's Conan's way of going, like, because also there's that epic after he drops the head and everything, and he just takes his dad's sword and just drops it too, and he's like, all right, I'm done, I can now move on.
Yeah, we're done with
it's so impactful. And then him just sitting there thinking about what all that's gone down, and then he just goes, you know what, we're gonna light this bitch up, just we're out of here.
We're gonna leave that one down. He does what Randy Quaid does at the end of Independence Day. Now you just got to tell everybody else, how to get out. So I wondered though, Lindsey, to your point, like it released everybody there from their trance. Do you think every other set temple around the region there at that point too sort of all woke up? Because I can sort of think that they did. Yeah.
He literally cut the head off the snake. That's how it goes. The trance.
Yeah.
I was surprised his head didn't turn into a snake head after the fact, but I'm not upset about that. But
no,
I was kind of expecting it. But
I like though that to something Carmelita said though is that when you kill them, they just die like men. You killed him in that form, and if he caught him in snake form and he killed him like that, he just died as a snake. You can still kill him. He's not invincible.
I did wonder what they used for the head though to make that perfect,
like a great bowling ball.
Yeah, because it was too bouncy to be a bowling ball, I was really trying to dissect it. Maybe like some kind of weighted medicine ball or something. I'm not
Probably,
sure,
yeah.
but
yeah, because it like doesn't bounce either
Yeah.
like a ball that's too light. You're right.
It
It
doesn't
just
have
hits
air
it.
in
Yeah.
it. It's just
I
got
put
enough roll, but
way too much thought into it.
I've thought about that for 30 plus years.
Right,
That's
but you should though, because again, that's the scene, and again, I think that's the brilliance of cutting the music and only having that sound going is that when you cut them down, they're just like everything else,
Yep.
and that's the whole point. It's like, see, your God is just an empty head,
Yep.
and that's it. And I mean, that's pretty powerful to a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, again, the criticism is just a bunch of swords and boobs and blood. Okay, yeah, that's in it, but there's a whole lot more going on in this movie.
And that part is fun, really fun.
Yeah, that's. But the message is couched in that. That's how you
Yes.
get to that, and the repeat viewing of this, and then to end with the idea of the older Conan sitting on this
with the promise of the greatest movie we've never seen. Yes, of course.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Well, it's another tale for another day. And depending on which version you saw, it was like, that's another story to be told, or that story will be told.
Will be told. Oh.
And I'm like, no, it won't. But it's a great way to end, is that you realize like these are moments in his life, and there's so much more to go. Where could it go next? And we'll find out next time. But we're at the part of the podcast where it's time to get final thoughts, recommendations, and popcorn ratings. So what are yours for Conan the Barbarian, Carmelita?
So, I mean, if after I just gushed about this movie and got way too serious about the philosophy behind Conan the Barbarian, does it illustrate to you how much I love this movie? I don't know what would. There aren't words strong enough, right? I don't know. You can't overstate it, how much I love this. So this is like a super jumbo popcorn loaded with butter. Oh, just like the most perfect, delicious, piping hot, just wonderful popcorn you've ever had. So
Eaten
good.
by Tom Cruise at a movie theater. That's how good this is.
In chunks.
In big fastest chunks, yes.
Andy, what about you?
I gotta echo what my good friend said is next to Star Wars, this movie is like my go-to. Like, it's weird to say, like, people always ask, like, what's your, like, go-to comfort movie? I was like, Conan the Barbarian. I'm like, when I'm not feeling great, I put it on. When I'm happy, I put it on. When I'm sad, I put it on. My wife will literally go, again? I'm like, I'll go downstairs and put it on. I have a Star Wars tattoo on one arm. I have seriously given thought to the snake cult tattoo on the other one, because it's like, those are my two movies. Like, that defines who I am. So the biggest, most freshly popped with no bad kernels at the bottom bucket of popcorn that nobody else can share. It's mine, and I get to eat it all. That's what this movie means to me.
Lindsay?
Amazing. I also like this movie, but it was my first time. So it's not one of my comfort movies yet. Lord of the Rings is, though, and this had a lot of Lord of the Rings vibes in it, as mentioned in Ron/Chat JPT's plot summary. I will give it a solid large popcorn, though, with butter and salt, like a perfect large popcorn.
Yes.
I think it definitely deserves that. And honestly, one of my things that I do when I work my day job is I listen to movie scores. It helps me concentrate. Lord of the Rings is usually one of my go-tos, or The Hobbit, or Batman. A lot of different movie scores. This one, definitely going in the rotation.
Yes.
It is, the score is the lead character as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And it was beautifully shot. It was beautifully done. I have very poor patience when it comes to movies that have too much air in them. And this one, you would think, with the length of it, and I watched the extended version. I didn't realize that, but I did, and so I'm glad I did. Sucker for an extended version, but
always.
Yeah. And the amount of, I felt like the camera the camera held in just the right spots. The breath was given in just the right spots, and I didn't feel like there was too much air. I was never bored. It was easy to follow, and it was always interesting and unique. So I'm going with a solid large, but I have a feeling it will get promoted in the near future. So highly recommend if you've never seen it as a first
I'm
time
so happy for
full
you.
watcher.
Me
Yes.
too.
I'm
Oh my
so
god.
happy for you.
Conan, it brings people together.
Oh my god, thanks.
Ron.
It's funny. When we talked about in our Starship Troopers review, we talked about how Starship Troopers was to me what this movie is to Andy. But then, as I was watching this, I realized I have seen this movie so many friggin' times, and I bought a sword. I bought a Conan sword at a flea market. Like the only thing I think that has stopped me from like being as big a super fan of this movie as Andy and Carmelita is the fact that I don't have cable anymore, so I don't see it just pop up randomly like I still do with Starship Troopers, because this movie's not on any of like the free streaming services that I use, like Pluto or Tubi or anything like that. And I'm sure
Right.
it's some sort of Dino De Laurentiis rights issue, thing that he's doing or his family's doing. But if they can get that sorted out and this goes on, it's where it should be to be,
Right.
then this would be it would quickly jump up the rankings. And I gotta say, a lot of it does go down to that Basil Polidoro score. For whatever reason, all the scores he does hit me just perfectly. Like
The Clendathu drop, dude. I
Starship
listen to that
Troopers,
weekly.
RoboCop, the main theme from RoboCop, like just plays in my head if I'm driving down a dark,
Yeah.
wet street at night. I'm just sitting here like humming the RoboCop theme in my head. I can just feel it, like, and God forbid there's someone standing around a trash can, because it definitely, like, I just want to do a like a J turn and stomp on the gas.
Or get out and just shoot him in the dick. Either way,
If they're doing crimes, but
only if
yes.
they're doing crimes, of course.
I know my prime directives. But yeah, I'm gonna join the club with an extra large popcorn, butter, salt, throw some chocolate covered peanuts in there, because I like to do that because they get a little melty with the popcorn. You get the crunch from the peanuts.
Mm.
You get the extra salt from the peanuts. It's a nice treat if you want to have yourself a fat day at the movies.
Okay.
Yeah, extra large popcorn. Like, I can't add anything to the glowing reviews. I'm thrilled that Lindsey loved it as much as she did, liked it as much, and I'm 100% not surprised that the score
Yeah.
hit Lindsey like a truck.
I figured that would be the thing that hooked you. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
it's extra large for me, and maybe for a little bit of a different reason, because I told the story at the beginning. My dad showed me this because he thought I would dig it, and he showed me some of his pictures that he had from Conan and stuff, and kind of told me a little bit about more or less what this was. And then I watched it, and several years later, we watched it again. It was over like a holiday break or something. I think he just broke the VHS out, and we were home together. And I'll never forget this. He looked over at me and said, "Do you get it now?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I do." And it's when the movie, like, I think I understood it. I was in my 20s, and I was like, okay, yeah, there's a lot more going on. And what he was trying to get me to realize is that there's a lot more to things when you scratch beneath the surface of them.
Mhm.
And if you listen to them and you pay attention, you get what it was like. And I thought about that, over the last couple of days after watching this, and just sort of where I am now, a lot older and everything, and thinking about that, and just the journey that Conan takes in the movie is incredible. And it's easy to pigeonhole Arnold Schwarzenegger as this type of thing, as sort of the archetype of what he has played and all the many characters that he's brought to life over the years. But underneath all of that physicality and all of that stuff, this was a guy who really, really wanted to be a serious actor and wanted to try to do it. And they surrounded him with the right group of people to do it. James Earl Jones in particular really brought it out of him. I don't think anybody else could have written stuff that worked the way that Milius and Stone did from all the sources they pulled from. And John Milius really crafted this movie. with the great cast, his surfer buddy, the dancer he was in love with, and all that stuff. Just this ragtag group of folks with no money, driven by this crazy man, Dino De Laurentiis and his money to do this thing. And a movie that they've tried to get off the ground forever. The fact that it came out as good as it did is a feat to just filmmaking. But then the fact that it lasts, and it's 40 something years old, and the more you watch it, the more you can pull out of it. It's one of those that totally lends itself to repeat viewings, and you can just watch it sometimes if you just want to watch people get hacked up. You just want to see some cool action, and it's got all that stuff. But I kind of feel like I'm Rob Antiquaire when you're talking about Blood Fist. You want a cool action movie, Blood Fist got you. You want a cool action movie, Conan's got you. But you want a deep philosophical movie, Conan's got you. And there's a lot more going on here than meets the eye. And it's certainly, and we're not going to review it, so I'll say now, there's a whole lot more going on than what the people in 2011 ultimately tried to make. And anybody that was associated with that movie will tell you it got destroyed in the editing room. Like it was never going to be anything that it could have been, and it wasn't a good idea to begin with. But this one it just stands the test of time. And there's, people wonder, like, why won't they ever go back to this again? And why didn't they do more of them? We can talk about that after we do the Destroyer review and stuff. But I'll be honest with you, I think a lot of people look at this and they go like, there's no freaking way I'm touching that. Because how am I ever you can never repeat those beats again.
Nope.
You could tell adventures, you could tell stories, but with something that's been around this long, how do you ever reset the dial on it? And you can't.
Oh, it's
just
magic.
Yeah, it is. It was a piece of magic, and that's it's one of the coolest things about this movie. And I'm glad we got a chance to finally do it here on Film Strip. It's been on the list for years, and so finally getting to break it out. I'm glad that I got to share it with all of you, Lindsey. I'm glad it was your first run through it, and then Andy and Carmelita again. Can't thank y'all enough for coming and sharing and being a part of all of this cool stuff. So tell folks how they can follow you and all the cool things that y'all have got going on out there in the podcast land.
I am on Twitter and Blue Sky. I'm on both, folks. And I'm also on Letterboxd. Same handle for everything, at Carmelita Says.
I also have made my social medias incredibly easy. It's Andrew M. Gorham. As I always say, just look for the big nerd surrounded by droids grinning like an idiot, and you found your daily dose of positivity. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk about my Star Wars podcast just really quickly. Imperial Scum with my best friends in the world, Chris and Mark. We don't put episodes out as much as we would like just because life gets in the way, but we do have something planned coming up. And on all of the socials, it's backwards because somebody took it long before Chris ever had it. So it's at Scum Imperial on all the different socials, and we are on all of them as well. So thank you for letting me shill that. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Strongly recommend go back through the Imperial Scum catalog. Lots of great Star Wars discussion, Star Wars adjacent discussion, tons of great stuff. And then just find Carmelita on all the cool podcasts that are out there because she's on them, and you're in for a treat. Anytime I see it pop up, I'm like, schlocking off. My afternoon's full.
Thanks,
Film Feast, anything you got going on.
Anytime I'm on a podcast, when I'm so fortunate, people ask me to guest, I post that it's out there. But yeah, you can search me. It's
always good stuff, and always bringing a lot of good insight, and so really appreciate that. And of course, always fun talking movies with Rod and Lindsey here. And you can follow this show on all the social media at Film Strip Pod. We're on Twitter, X, Blue Sky, Instagram, and we post stuff about what we've got coming up on the show, or we try to retweet our friends' podcasts and things like that, so that you can get into that fun content. But go ahead and subscribe, share the show on your socials, and leave us a positive review if you'd like. We're now also on YouTube, and the most random episodes get these huge amounts of views. I don't know why, but I'm all for it. Go for it, folks. If you want to look at a static version of the logo we've had for almost 20 years and listen to us talk on YouTube, it's there. But we're on all the other feeds as well. We appreciate the support. So until next time, thank you for listening to Film Strip.
Thank you for listening to Film Strip. You can find more episodes on our website, filmstrippodcast.com. The Film Strip theme music is produced and performed by Frozen Lake 121. All content used or discussed in these podcast episodes is the property of the respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504, C2, Title 17.